So let's get started, and let me invite on stage our speakers for the first panel. We have with us Rateb, former head of supply chain at Julphar Gulf Pharmaceutical Limited. We have Imad, supply chain director from Pharma 5. We have Azuka Okeke, chief executive officer from African Resource Center. And we have Ramatu, chief executive officer from Health Supplies Management Agency. I would request Ramatu to kindly lead the discussion ahead.
Can we have a brief introductions of panelists so that people can get to know you better? I'll start from Azuka.
Good morning, everyone. I think it's morning in Nigeria, so it's depending on where you are. Good morning, everyone. My name is Azuka Okeke. I am the Chief Executive Officer for Africa Resource Center, Nigeria. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Imad. Thank you, Azuka. Welcome to the panel. Imad, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Imad Zitoune, Supply Chain Director in Pharma 5 company in Morocco. Also, like Azuka, good morning, everybody. It's also the morning in Morocco. Good afternoon, everywhere. So I am pleased to join today. I have more than 20 years in as a short experience. Started from P&G when everything started for me. Pharma 5 across. I've done also Nexans, Nestle, Bell Grap, and also Sanofi company, which means that I spent a little bit pharma and non-pharma activities as experience. It was interesting in supply chain world with the close connection with other function, marketing, sales, finance, HR, etc. So in terms of academic background, I've got my bachelor and also diploma in management and marketing in Morocco, and also I managed to get my executive certificate from Northeastern University in Boston in 2011. So very glad and pleased to join today. Thank you.
Very, very interesting, Imad. Very interesting background, and nice for you to join us on the panel today. Rateb, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself, very briefly? Rateb, you have to unmute your mic. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rateb Fadel Al-Jallad. I'm a pharmacist. I was working for Gulf Pharmaceutical Industries for 20 years in different sectors and different fields, starting from production for 9 years, the warehouse management for 8 years, warehouse and materials management for 8 years, and 1 year for organizational excellence, and 2 years I was heading recently supply chain in Gulf Pharmaceutical Industries. Currently, I'm doing pharma consultation, helping companies to increase revenues, reduce the cost, or optimize the cost. In other words, more precise word, optimizing the cost, and facing the current challenges. I'm glad actually to be here with you in order to discuss this very important subject. Thank you.
So great to have you. Great to have you on the panel, Rateb. And I'm your moderator for today. And just a little bit about myself. I'm Ramatu Abdulkadir. I'm the CEO of Health Supplies Management Agency, Kaduna. And just as a summary, I've done everything in supply chain from shop floor to the C-suite. So I'm sure we're going to have a very fun time today. So as an introduction, we all know that companies are expanding their product portfolios to meet rapidly changing markets and lengthening product life cycles. Emerging economies want more affordable products, and this has been very pronounced, especially with the COVID that we're still navigating. Quality and compliance issues are rising because products are more complex and regulatory scrutiny is stricter. The number of drug recalls is increasing, yet the supply chains remains fragmented and incomplete. Also with weaknesses that put patients at risk. cost billions in values and lessen the health sector's ability to take on the challenges that we're currently facing. We also know that the healthcare sector has to build newer capabilities that can have direct impact on performance and bottom lines. Various studies have indicated that it seems the health sector is poorly placed in terms of supply chain metrics like inventory, obsolescence, and manufacturing lead times. Healthcare system can benchmark better vis-a-vis FMCG sectors. I would like to start with you, Imad. We all know that the supply chains are truly global, and mostly sourcing originates from few countries like China and India. The firms and companies need to secure supply bases and make supply chain more resilient. We also are aware that recently we've had increasing calls around the globe for improving local manufacturing due to global shortages of medicines and personal protective equipment. At least in Nigeria, we had huge local calls for that. The rise in economic nationalism and increasing pressures on manufacturers to increase domestic production and reduce dependencies while also rethinking the use of lean manufacturing. So, Imad, can you tell us, will pharma supply bases shift from their traditional bases as we know them? And if not, how should the healthcare industry players build resilience in this region?
Thank you, Ramatu, for this good introduction. Coming to your really question, it's an interesting question. As said, I had the chance to see both activity, pharma and non-pharma, mainly the FMCG. I had the chance to work in Procter & Gamble, Nestle, as a giant of the big operator of FMCG around the world, as a leader also. And also I had the chance to see Sanofi as a big player in pharma, and now Pharma 5 as a leader in Morocco, a key player in all of the generics in Morocco. Why I said I've took these examples just to get the real components to the answer to your question. When comparing P&G standard as American standard to Nestle as somehow this Swiss style of management or style of organization in terms of business management, comparing to Sanofi also as a big player in pharma sector, and taking this small example of Pharma 5 as a generic player, somehow there is an answer, which means that the healthcare key players around the world are taking the good examples from the FMCG. We have to confess that with FMCG companies as a standard, they have some advance in terms of techniques and in terms also of business management and in terms of standard and processes to make on the right way the business in terms of growth and in terms of profitability. We have to confess that there is 20 years ago, the pharma sector wasn't really as today in terms of process. Talking about supply chain, no one talks S&OP in pharma sector. A sales and operational planning processes. It is new in pharma comparing to FMCG companies, which they have more than 30 years in terms of practice of S&OP. If I took only the S&OP as a key process for running demand management or running at the end the business. So I think that pharma operators or key players, they are following the good examples coming from good experience from the FMCG companies. I took the example of S&OP, We have also everything relative to lean management as also a very strong the processes and standard in terms of optimization and in terms of increasing the productivity across all of the value chain. It's also a good example to be considered from pharma, and they started since the last 10 years to discover lean management processes and lean manufacturing, because you talked about affordable products. Affordable products, you cannot imagine how to decrease costs in terms of manufacturing or in terms of distribution cost without tackling all of the subjects relative to the lean across your value chain. It's not only considered for industrial subjects, like I said, manufacturing only or in terms of procurement only, but it is also valid for sales, distribution, marketing, which means that at the end, pharma across all of the last years is living real revolution in terms of everything, in terms of organization, in terms of processes, in terms of information systems. Because I took the example of SNOP, I took the example also of lean management. I have also to talk and tackle the point of information systems and digitalization, because somehow in the past, the majority of the exercise is done in Excel sheets. We have to confess that the MRP exercise and even the MPS in terms of master production scheduling has been done through or across Excel sheets in even big companies. I was in Sanofi and I lived this at the beginning, and we have worked on SAP launch, and it was a real revolution in the company at the end. Because imagine managing more than 1,000 API in terms just API, and talking about raw materials, more than 1,500 materials and more than 2,000 packaging materials that you are managing it in Excel sheets. Imagine the risk behind. Imagine all of the waste behind. How to get the efficiency. Imagine also that you are running with more than 1,000 finished goods if you are running it in Excel sheets. So at the end, companies, they increase their level of awareness about all of the modern facilities applied minimum 20 years ago by the FMCG companies, because SAP in P&G, it's a subject that was taken before even 2000, which means that we have a difference of 20 years, basically, comparing to some companies in pharma that just started to work on the information system or discovering SAP or other information system SAP. So here we have the opportunity also talking about information system and all the effort that should be in terms of the digital solution. So talking about all of, I am just taking some examples to just show that there is a huge efforts that has been done from pharma key players to to be on the same line and on the same level of technology like the FMCG companies. More than this, we have also to bring some lights about all of the regulatory and quality standards. We have to confess also on this that comparing pharma to non-pharma activities, we have to confess that there is some strict rules and long lead times in terms of regulatory process, comparing food to drugs. So here again, there is a huge opportunity, in pharma activity or sector, how to squeeze timings, how to bring flexibility
Doctor, we had been very clear
thank you.
about
Thank
2
you,
minutes per
Imad.
answer. I'm really sorry to
Thank you,
interrupt,
Imad.
but
And okay,
Okay.
all
go ahead.
panelists stick to the 2 to 3 minutes timeline. Sorry, Ramatu,
Okay.
you can.
Yes,
Okay,
it's all right. Yeah, so thank you.
It was my last point covering this regulatory
Yes.
opportunity to squeeze time in. Thank you.
Don't worry, Imad, I'll come back to you. I saw you were so excited explaining that, and we've enjoyed your discussion. So we'll stick to time, and I would like to go immediately to Rateb. We know that we have identified company vulnerabilities all through the COVID period because supply chains have been brought to the spotlight. And knowing where the risks lie, having alternate sources and using metrics such as time to recovery are all important to building resilience. Companies also look at how flexible their manufacturing capacity is, whether you can reconfigure or redeploy as quickly as the case may be. So Rateb, I just want to come to you on that. How has COVID changed supply chain drivers? And how do you see the future of pharma supply chain? What does it look like, the future, if you have the crystal ball?
Yes.
Rateb.
Thank you, Ramatu. Actually, COVID-19 was unexpected guest. This case it didn't happen before in the recent period of supply chain. Can I request speakers to mute their microphone because there is a lot of noise around? So
yeah, please mute your mics.
yeah. So I can please everybody mute their microphone.
Go ahead, Rateb.
Okay. So COVID-19 changed the game. It was unexpected guest, unwelcome guest. So it's adding more pressure and examination to the current supply chain. Now the companies who ever having good and strong supply chain, they could survive in the current situation, especially at the initial stage. At the initial stage of COVID-19, due to uncertainty, high uncertainty, and unexpected sudden pandemic, what happened? A lot of countries closed, stopped exportation, including China for certain API, certain raw materials. India, even they stopped exportation, and a lot of countries, they were restricting exportation for certain treatment in order to secure their population for those treatments. This was creating a lot of chaos in the other countries who cannot access this treatment. For example, paracetamol, which is used #1 treatment to reduce the temperature, it was restricted, for example, to export by China, by India, and so on. Then also there is a lot of uncertainty because it's unknown disease. So every day we were hearing that there is a new treatment for COVID-19, like the famous hydroxychloroquine. One day WHO is recommending to use without clinical studies. Next day, stop using hydroxychloroquine. One day, French scientists saying that don't use ibuprofen for COVID-19 treatment, use acetaminophen, and so on. So there is a lot of uncertainty and change in driver. This leads to increase the demand on these treatments and these medicines, either as a finished product or as an API, and even creating big pressure on the intermediates, the key starting materials of those medicines, like hydroxychloroquine, remdesivir, vitamin D, vitamin C, antibiotics, levofloxacin, azithromycin. There is a lot of corticosteroids, so there was high demand on these types of medicines, which lead the price to increase. So the countries and the companies who has higher strength, higher purchase strength, a good financial situation can afford the increase in the cost of medicine to treat their population. But the countries who, I cannot hear you. Yes. So the countries.
I'll come back to you on that again.
Yeah.
Hold your thoughts. I'll come back to you. I would like to ask Azuka. We've been hearing about reshoring manufacturing, but we all know that it has challenges, because it's one thing to reshore manufacturing, and then you find that you have a lot of skill gaps, generational skill gap in product development or the shop floor. So restoring manufacturing capabilities, building basic processes, and engaging capable workforce are all important towards reshoring. And I know, Azuka, you've been doing a lot of great work in Nigeria and all over Africa in terms of providing opportunities. We know that supply chain transformation can be found across the value chain, from the wholesaler to the retailer down to the hospitals. So Azuka, how can we improve the collaboration among various stakeholders to improve supply chain performance?
Thank you very much for that. I think one of the things we can say that the pandemic has taught everyone is that you cannot operate in a silo. The pandemic affected everyone, whether you're in the public sector, whether you're in the private sector. It was a common, I would say, something that affected all industries. So that makes a case for the integration of effort. If we're talking about resilience, supply chain resilience, in any situation, any society, you know, whether you are a manufacturer or whether you are part of the value chain, the heart of resilience is to know your beneficiary, to understand the customer needs. If you understand who are the ones to consume these commodities, who are the ones to, you know, take on this product, then that begins the journey of resilience in terms of what are the supplier or the demand bases, and having visibility and integrating effort. Now, the reality of that in Africa is that the skill gap remains a challenge when you are trying to integrate effort and when you are trying to build in a resilient system, where if you understand the gaps, the risks within all across the value chain, whether it's with the logistics, the transportation, how do you build in a system that enables efficiency, enables you to absorb disruptions when we have a major skill gap? So one of the things we have been looking at is, I call it, can we just stop saying public health supply chain, private sector supply chain? We need to know that supply chain is supply chain, because that is one of the major challenges we're having in Africa. Once there is that I would say division, you find that many people in the private sector, I was listening to Imad, and he was talking about the lean management system. He was talking about the SNOP, the system in Procter & Gamble, and how the pharma industry can leverage that system. Now, if you go to, in the same system, whether it's Morocco, whether it's Egypt, whether it's Nigeria, if you go to that same system where you have Procter & Gamble running with, like you said, they are 20 years ahead. Go to the public sector system, you find that what you have there is basic Excel technology, where everything or paper-based, and we are in the same system. If we're talking about collaboration for efficiency, let's bring this whole thing in a systematic way, where we begin to provide the same kind of, you know, best practices that exist in Procter & Gamble, plug it into the public sector. Let's have standardized education system that everyone in the system can access. If there are tools that are being used in the FMCGs, the pharma is trying to adopt it. The health facilities should adopt that. Let's go on this journey together. So for me, if we're looking at resilience, one key thing we need to do is we need to form better public-private sector partnerships. That should be a way that we go. So I will stop here for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Azuka. And you highlighted a very, very important point, the dichotomy between public and private sector supply chains. So I'll go back to you, Imad. You talked about S&OP processes and lean strategies. How can we bring this best in-class strategies and processes that FMCG use? How can we bring them to public health supply chains and private all together now without the dichotomy?
Thank you, Ramatu. Thank you, Rateb and Azuka, also for your very interesting intervention regarding the points well explained and tackled by yourself. For your question, Ramatu, Azuka said one key word. I like it, and it's strong. It's strong word, and if applied, everything will go smoothly, and the results, positive consequences after implementation will be for sure there. Best practices. I like this word. I am from the school of this strong standard best practices. Everything is about best practices. If the companies are aware about all of the best practices in every area of the system or the organization, then the things will go on the right way. Talking about SNOP, SNOP is a key process. Everything is driven as a business management with SNOP. At the end, it's not something that is very tough to implement. What is tough, because it is linked with the best practices, I like also keyword, is change management. Everything is as a culture and the mindset very difficult in the mind of our stakeholders, which means that if we start with the alignment of all of the stakeholders about what we have to run or what we have to implement, either it is SNOP or lean management standards, then the solution will be there. How to make this? It's basically mandatory to tackle the necessary diagnoses relative to the organization. Do we have the right organization first? Do we have the right people? It's not only the right people, the right best people, because we are close to 2025, where everything is very hard, where everything is very tough. Rateb said good things about the huge pressure on prices. So we cannot afford to accept normal people or very basic standard people. We have to work hard with our HR organization to get the best people. So it comes from first the best people across all of our organization. The second thing, a very flexible.
Imad, I will come back to you on that. Just to ask very quickly, Rateb, you talked about patient safety in your initial presentation, and we don't want to lose sight of patient safety while building resilience. So how do we build supply chain resilience and improve patient safety at the same time?
Yes, actually, what Mr. Imad was saying, that pharma supply chain always late than FMCG. Actually, I could agree with him up to a certain extent, but there is a special nature for the pharma supply chain, that most of the products in supply chain are temperature sensitive, and you know the difficulties while transporting and storing the temperature sensitive products, especially in emerging countries. Today I'm living in UAE, and UAE has good road structure, good warehouses, temperature controlled warehouses, and good airports where they can manage the cold chain shipments. But what about other emerging countries? Still there is no enough network. Do you know that for example, now we are expecting the vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine. The COVID-19 vaccine should be given to 7.8 billion people. And in order to fulfill the requirements of single dose of COVID-19 we should fill 8,000 Boeing 747 cargo aircrafts. So can you imagine, this is the gigantic, the most biggest temperature control in the history for vaccines around the along the history. So what is going to happen? This vaccine, still there is uncertainty what is the temperature of vaccine. For example, Pfizer vaccine, it is expected that the storage and transportation conditions will be minus 80 degrees. So even if we get the vaccine today, there is a lot of difficulty in transportation. This is the role of resilience of supply chain, how we can find solutions, quick solutions to solve issues. We have a quick solution to find the vaccine. Tomorrow we need a solution also to manage this huge supply chain activities in order to deliver vaccine to the people. Already there is a lot of problems in transporting temperature controlled vaccine. WHO announced that more than 25% of vaccines are wasted, and if we apply the same percentage on COVID-19 vaccine, then it is disastrous amount of money and delay on treatment. So I hope that I answered part of your question.
Yeah.
Actually, we need to talk more and more, but the time is limited.
True. And thank you, Rateb. You brought out some very, very critical information. The COVID vaccine we're all talking about, and everybody is waiting for COVID vaccines. And we have so many challenges on ground that we need to overcome before we can be able to get to where we need to get. So I'll come back to you, Azuka. He talked about infrastructure, 8,000 Boeing airplanes to deliver COVID vaccines. And I know that you work with all sectors, you do a lot of collaboration. How can we leverage on that to ensure that these vaccines get to the people? Because it's one thing to have the vaccine, it's another to get it to the people. Can you shed a little bit of light on that? How can we get those vaccines using collaboration and resources across the entire sector?
I think, listening to what Rateb was saying, I got scared. I always get scared when people call me about the COVID vaccine. How is Nigeria getting ready? How is Africa? It's a scary topic because, of course, the cold chain needs. And again, we are not prepared. We haven't mapped out what we need for this vaccine in Africa. I would talk for Nigeria in particular. I haven't seen a clear strategy for receiving these vaccines and for distributing these vaccines, for maintaining the cold chain, and also for the immunization itself. So if we're talking about leveraging resources within private sector, one thing I know with setting up collaborations is that private sector wants to know the exact need. They are very particular about what exactly do you need, and we have to be very clear on that. In the government system, as a country, we have to start by articulating what we need to have these vaccines. Going by the distribution mechanism, Nigeria should be expecting nothing less than 2 million, I would say, vials of this vaccine. How are we going? Where are we going to warehouse this? Let's start with the warehousing of this. Even before we talk about moving it from the national space down to the state space, down to the communities that need it. If we are able as government to articulate what we have currently, whether it's our current vaccine supply chain strategy and what we have as a plan for COVID, then one can begin to identify the areas where we are going to collaborate or facilitate collaborations with the private sector. Is our major challenge warehousing space? Do we have the cold chain facility to have this bulk of vaccines coming in when we consider that we're still doing our regular routine immunization? Do we have the facility to transport this? Where do we have the gap? Is it at the national level or at the state level? Are states prepared? Do states understand the cold chain needs? If we want to talk about collaboration, we need to first of all tidy our own house. We need clear strategies. We need to know what are the gaps. Then we can then start engaging private sector ahead of time. So for me is we are running against time. These vaccines will come in. I've been telling everybody that is asking me, I said, please be vocal about this to the government. We need to have a clear strategy. We need to understand the clear needs so that we can then begin to engage private sector. Private sector is willing to help. We have private sector in Nigeria that can provide the help. But what we don't know is, what do you need as a government? So,
thank you very much, Azuka. Very valid points you have raised there. And like you, I'm also really scared. In Nigeria, we know the state of infrastructure and talking about the mass distribution of COVID vaccines. But I believe that's why we're having this discussion, so that stakeholders, leaders, and everybody out there should put hands together and see how we can get these vaccines to the people. We still have more time, so I'll just come back to you, Rateb, talking about technology, end-to-end technology integration, having visibility to get greater agility while also reducing costs and flexibility. So I know you touched a little about use of technology across the sector. How can we use technology to make these vaccines available? Because it seems there's a gap in the sense that there's companies working to bring these vaccines to the market, while the end users are not even aware of how they're going to get this product to use. Do you have any information what can help stakeholders out there prepare better ahead for when these vaccines will eventually come out?
Yes, actually, the COVID-19 accelerated the digital transformation. We were talking in the past about digital transformation, and the maximum digital transformation is to use SAP ERP system. And this is the whole story about digital transformation. Some companies were considering themselves, yes, we transform digitally and we are living in the 21st century with the digital platforms. But this is not the whole story. Actually, COVID-19 was examining us and accelerated a lot of things which we were not imagining to happen, like distance working, Internet of Things, blockchains, robotics, artificial intelligence. For example, if we take the example of artificial intelligence, we found ourselves very weak in artificial intelligence, and we can use it in the good for people. For example, developing a vaccine will take decades, very long trials, and to develop the molecule or the procedure or whatever. By using artificial intelligence, they accelerated to find the right vaccine for certain disease. So the computer can do a lot of arrangement of the structure of the COVID-19 and to find the correct matching. So this is how the vaccine, which is the fastest vaccine in the history, is coming. For example, in 1 year, almost in 1 year, we can see one vaccine is coming to the application by using artificial intelligence. So this is how the digital transformation is very important in managing.
Thank you, Rateb. I'll come back to you, Imad, with your experience from the private sector. Is there any advice you have for stakeholders out there? How do we navigate getting these vaccines to people that need them? Are there any lessons we can learn to mobilize on a massive scale while trying to get these vaccines to the market?
I think Azuka already said it clearly, and here just to link things together, I think each country is at the end should apply SNOP for this specific and key subject. It is a good case study at the end. Azuka said it clearly. Each country should, at the beginning and starting with the first thing, to define the volumes that is needed for its population, for all of the one that will use these vaccines. Year 1, year 2, and so on. We have to be clear about our need. So this is first. Second thing, we have to think, and even Rateb said it, we have to think how to manage all of the logistics of these vaccines, either the storage or the transportation. We have to prepare the adequate storage area or the warehouses where we have to store under the good temperature conditions. We have to think about the trucks with the full respect of the cold chain. So this is mandatory for vaccine business or activity. So all of these things should be prepared, well prepared in advance before we place the order to the countries or to the supplier which are going to ensure the replenishment of these vaccines. And another point is also mandatory. We have to do the right financial, because we cannot go through this commitment without taking into account what are the financial facilities that we have. Because at the end, everything is about money. This inventory that we have to keep of vaccines is money. So it's working capital there. So we have at the end to think about all of these things. We have the right people to think about these things, which means that we have to consult the experts to study on this, and not really the standard basic guys which are running the normal activities in the ministries, who are going to tackle these key points. So the experts should be consulted, the good ones, to tackle all of these key parameters, so that at the end we will have the right accessibility of the vaccines to everyone, with the right price also, because we are talking about, for the instance, in some countries, I am from Africa, from Morocco, we have to consider the poor people and how to do our best to make this vaccine accessible to these people, because at the end we should avoid the point to vaccine also the rich people. So it's not the objective itself. So this is what I can advise all of the countries. Life is mandatory for everyone, and all of the governments should think about these things seriously. Thank you, Ramatu.
Thank you very much, Imad, and very, very valid points that you raised there. And I think just to add a little voice to that, I hope that a panel such as this today will provide the information for critical stakeholders to begin to take decisions, because it wouldn't augur well for these vaccines to eventually land at our airports and then we begin to run around. And what is even most worrying is that for a lot of emerging economies, we don't have stable electricity, stable power. Infrastructural gaps are very huge. And I hear Rateb talking about minus 80 degrees. And that is a huge, huge gap that will need to be covered. How do we store this vaccine is a very, very serious problem. Then we begin to talk about how to get it to people that need them. Also, this will bring about issues of equity and people. How do we make sure that the vulnerable get these vaccines? How do we ensure that everybody that needs these vaccines get the vaccines? It's also very important. This has been discussed in this panel today. We also talked about SNOP, very, very critical. In my organization, we do our SNOP. We've adopted it. We're a public health supply chain, but we do that. So it's very important for public health supply chains to benchmark with other best-in-class supply chains. We are not a different supply chain. Supply chain is supply chain. So any best practice out there must be extended to the healthcare sector if we want to have any form of resilience. And there's no better time to talk about that now. We've all also discussed about lean manufacturing strategies, also very important. How do we adjust that? How do we ensure that the right policies are in place? People are talking about, should we be looking at having some stock on hand? Should we be looking at having, do we increase our stock? How do we manage our inventory in terms of building, while we're also building resilience? We also talked about security, patient security. We want to ensure that we don't lose that on the table. It's very easy to lose track of that while you're trying to build resilience. We also discussed about supply chain capabilities, which is very, very important. So while countries are calling for nationalization of manufacturing, which is also valid considering the disruption of COVID and how huge gap was observed in getting PPEs, countries could not cater for the needs of their public. But while we try to reshore manufacturing, we also have to be cognizant of the capability gap out there. It's one thing to have a manufacturing plant, then you immediately realize that you don't have the supply chain human resource capacity to handle that. So those are the issues we discussed today. Azuka also talked very important on collaboration, very key. You can't do it on your own. Public, private, NGOs, all stakeholders, government, and even the people, community organization, faith-based organization, all hands must be on deck to be able to ensure that this resilience that we're talking about is fully entrenched in the health sector. The health sector cannot continue to see itself differently. We have to be able to learn from other industries like the automotive industry, how they're able to build resilience into their supply chains. And these are very, very important. So I thank you so much for being on this panel today. It's been an exciting panel, and I look forward to continuing the discussion after the panel. Thank you, and do have a nice week ahead.
Thank you.
Hi,
Thank you.
Ramatu. Sorry, Ramatu, we have, Ramatu, if you can check your WhatsApp, there are questions from the audience. If you can take that, please.
Oh, great. I missed that. Oh, okay. So we have some questions. So how do SMEs adapt the mitigating strategies to reduce the impact of COVID-19 pandemic without compromising the business efficiency? Who would want to take that question? Imad? How do we adapt mitigating strategies to reduce impact of COVID while also not compromising efficiency? I think we talked a little bit about that also during our discussion. Does anybody want to shed more light on that? So I think just for this question that was asked by Brian, we discussed it during our discussion in terms of, okay. You want to say something? Go ahead, Imad.
Yeah, just to complete what you have said, as you said clearly, Ramatu, and just avoid to repeat ourselves. I think the key is to be transparent first about the situation and to be aligned. I mean, all of the stakeholders should be aware about what is happening first, and then to get aligned about where to go. To answer with somehow intelligent way this good question, we have to focus on what is necessary, because what this COVID brings to us is a good lesson in terms of priorities settlement. At the end, before COVID, we have been in our ideal world, a couple of priorities, couple of strategies. At the end, there was no focus, and we lost what is necessary. Once COVID come and everybody is surprised and everybody is shocked, and at the end, a good awareness and awakeness about the situation, everyone started, I mean, putting himself under the pressure and with the good questions. What is necessary for business and what is not necessary? We will focus only on what is necessary. So this is
Thank you, Imad.
Simple.
Thank you very much. I have another question and we're running out of time. So how do we balance the use of AI and still uphold employment so that economies can improve? I believe this question is coming from a background of, oh, the robotics are coming to take over our jobs, the AI are going to take over our jobs. So how do you balance the use of AI while also creating employment for the people? Rateb, do you want to say something, or
Yes,
Azuka?
okay. Yes, okay. Actually, in my opinion, artificial intelligence is a tool. And if we know how to use the tool, of course, it cannot replace us. It is a tool to help us, not to replace us. Moreover, there is a chance if we are today working in this field and artificial intelligence or robotics will replace us, let us work in the field of artificial intelligence and robotics development, because there is now a lot of jobs for this field, and even there is a lack of people in some countries, even there is lack of talents in artificial intelligence and robotics. It is just in certain focused areas around the world. So there is a lot of jobs in this field. Let us work in that. If you are not developing yourself, you will be left over the revolution.
Thank you very much. And AI, ML, deep learning, they are all supposed to assist us. They are our newest team member. We should embrace them, use them for the good of people. Thank you so much for attending this session, and we can continue the discussion much later. Thank you, and do have a nice week ahead.